How do you promote a new company with a limited budget for marketing? Yeah. So what I recommend doing is leveraging YouTube a lot. Okay. And YouTube is the only gold rush in history where it costs you nothing to make the product. And YouTube is the only gold rush in history where you can get access to a gazillion consumers for next to nothing. And it's a gold rush. And I think we're all going to look back a decade from now and say, I wish I had created more YouTube content. And each little video I make, and many people make, are like little coffee shop franchises. They make money over time, and it all adds up. It certainly does. So I would leverage YouTube as well as LinkedIn and other social media platforms and opine about the sector you're passionate about, meaning give your opinion. And if you think like a thought leader, like the Rodin sculpture, I think therefore I am, eventually you become one. But it's lonely though at first when you're doing this. And so what I recommend doing is committing to maybe one LinkedIn article a week or one vlog per week, etc. And what you can also do, and I teach this in the first semester of my MBA program, is you can aggressively network and find people that work in the media. And when you sit down with them, you help them, first of all, find a great story. Maybe you did some research for them so they can get a Pulitzer Prize. And then what you do is if you help them enough, or if your business model is interesting enough, what happens is they write about your business. And then you'll see a spike in revenue. Now, you got to do this a couple times because one data point doesn't make a trend. But if you get a bunch of journalists to write about you and you see a bunch of spikes, then investors might get interested and it becomes self-fulfilling to the extent that you'll be able to raise money. Yeah. And all that I just mentioned was free. You don't have to pay for any of that advertising. And you can also write a book like I've done before as well. Yeah. And you can go to haroonventures.com/write book for more details. Yeah. Last thing I want to say is that I want your marketing pitch to be a little bit controversial too. Because if you're controversial but tasteful and classy, then what happens is you become interesting and the media writes about you. And I'll give you examples of controversy. So Mark Benioff, who is a wonderful humanitarian, I've met him a bunch of times before, and he's the founder of Salesforce.com. What he did when he launched Salesforce in 1999 and in the early 2000s, what he did was he went on all the talk shows, the Jim Cramer show, Mad Money. He did tons of interviews, etc. And what he did was he talked about how cloud computing is the future and traditional client-server software is dead. In fact, his logo at the time at Salesforce was the word software with a line through it. And so that was controversial and interesting at the same time. Richard Branson did the same thing as well when he launched Virgin Cola. Which didn't go anywhere, but his marketing was brilliant. What he did was he, in the 1980s, and you can Google this if you want to, there's wonderful pictures of it. In the 1980s, what he did was he rented a tank and he put Virgin Cola all over his tank. And he was declaring war on Coca-Cola, which is pretty cool, pretty cool. It was very controversial. Obviously, you can't do that these days in New York when you rent a tank, but if you're very controversial, then you become interesting. And if you're interesting, then you sell newspapers or ads on websites these days, etc., and people will write about you.